a very integrated way, and it's hard to stay away from ECE. So, if you look at where all ECE is there in our daily lives, um, right? So we have right? So we have these smart devices, right? That that's an integral part of our lives. The laptop, smartphone, smart TV, smartwatch, tablets, smart glasses, right? These are all these smart devices, and what makes it smart is the role that electronics and communication engineering plays in making these devices. Something as small, as simple as an LED, right? There is some sort of physics and some sort of electronics engineering that is going into it. This is a image of a sound of a signal, right? A signal is a fundamental aspect um, of, of ECE and of our daily life as well, right? When I speak, I'm creating some signal, right? When I'm hearing something, I get a signal. If something is touching me, there is a signal that is generated, right? So signal is an integral part of our lives, and it's one of the fundamental aspects of electronics and communication engineering. If we move on to like the musical side, right? In the olden days, we used to have these acoustic instruments, for example, the violin and the guitar, and those were mechanical instruments. But nowadays we have the electronic versions of these. So you have the electric violin, you have the electric guitar. To a certain extent, you also have the electric cello and the electric sitar as well, right? So these are all possible because of the advances that are happening in electronics and communication. In the medical field, you're having these hearing aids. Hearing aids, the fundamental technology that happens or that makes hearing aids work so effectively is the underlying concepts that you see in ECE, right? Or maybe a blood pressure monitoring device, right? Again, if you go into the optics side, right, you have your camera, you have your laser lights, right? These are all working on optics, right? In the camera, you have a sensor, right? Or even before the sensor, there is a lens, right? The lens is it's a part of physics, right? And then the lens works. If you go into your digital camera, it goes onto a sensor, right? Maybe it's going onto a CMOS sensor, which is based on the capacity of the sensor. You have so many megapixels, right? So that device works because of the principles that you learn in electronics and communication. Similarly, with the laser light, right? The laser, it's a fundamental part of optics or photonics, right? If you go on to the communication side, you have those GeoFi devices that we all carry around in our pockets, right? It's an extremely handy device, but why does it work, right? It works. It works because of the embedded technologies that is built into these devices, right? Similarly, antennas, right? That's an important part of this telescope. This large antenna that you see over here, right? Um, it's an antenna, right? It can be used for satellite communications or deep space communications, or maybe even for emergency telephones or weather monitoring, right? Motherboards, right? Motherboards are possible because of the advances in electronics and communication, right? So there are various applications, right? Then, for example, this is a figure of a wireless network, right? So you have the concept of a base station, you have the concept of dividing your geographical area into various zones. If you go into if you study a fourth year, when you talk about wireless communication, these are some concepts that you see. And upcoming areas like driverless cars. These are all possible because of ECE, right? Or at least it's not only ECE that plays a role. That's not what I mean, but ECE plays a large role in all of these to make it possible. And so with these examples, I hope it becomes very clear that these um, you know this particular branch of engineering plays a very important role in all our lives. Whether we understand it or whether we appreciate it on a daily basis or not, but it's something that is happening every day, and we are using it on a regular basis, right? And if you look at a brief history of electronics and communication engineering, the mother department or the parent branch is electrical engineering, right? It's only with the advent of these electronic devices that such a specialized branch of engineering emerged, right? And that's why you have um, in India particularly you have this electronics and communication, electronics and instrumentation, biomedical and communications, and variations of these branches. Right? But the parent branch is still electrical engineering, right? It's the kind of applications that we are looking at makes electronics and communications a separate specialized branch, right? And in if you look at foreign universities, if you look at some of the degrees that are being awarded, um, you know. Such a branch of engineering may not be there. So in many foreign universities, electronics and communication is still a part of electrical engineering, right? People, the academic setup, they have not diverged so much as in India, right? And it has a long history, right? And it's an area where many people, not only scientists but physicists, mathematicians, they have all played a vital role in making this branch so dynamic and so upcoming, right? These are some of the people we should. I put this figure up, because we tend to forget where we come from, right? You must understand, a lot of people's efforts and lives spend their lives dedicating and making some solid contributions to this field. So, for example, this is Ampere. We have all studied about Ampere's law, right? We also have a unit based after him, right? On the right, what you see is Joseph Fourier, right? It's he's a mathematician basically, but his studies are what we use in the second year signals and systems course. You all studied about Fourier analysis, right? It comes from his work, right? On the left, you see George Gould, right? He is a person who has come up with this Boolean algebra, and that's a fundamental one that you study in your computer organization course. You study Boolean algebra, right? Using ones and zeros, right? The fundamental concept came up from George Gould, right? And if you look at these years as well, you see these are in the 1700s, right? So that's why you say, it's a long history. And my aim here is not to capture everyone's photo over here, but just to highlight some important people who have played a vital role, right? And again, on the right, you see Jagdish Chandra Bose. We are all familiar with Hertz, right? When we talk about founder of radio, we talk about Hertz, right? At the same time, Jagdish J.C. Bose also played a vital role, in the propagation, the study of these propagation of radio waves. So, India also has a role to play in this field. Um, uh, you know, you We are familiar with the person who found the telephone, right? Alexander Graham Bell, right? A fundamental aspect that we, of communication today is the telephone, right? Then there is Thomas Edison, right? The founder of DC current, right? Equally important, I have not included his photo here, is the founder of AC current, right? Nikola Tesla, right? And then James Clerk Maxwell, right? Maxwell's equations, and it's his equations that are the fundamentals of electrodynamics, right? And another person is Claude Shannon. He's a very recent figure. He passed away in 2001, right? He's a father of information theory. So if you take the fourth year course on info theory, you will see the Shannon channel capacity, right? And he came up with that, right? What is the maximum capacity rate that for a wireless channel or a wired channel? What is the maximum information that can be sent? Right, the theoretical one, right? And you can see from these people, right? They're all from varied backgrounds. Not all of them are engineers. Some of them are mathematicians. Some of them are physicists. Some of them are engineers, right? Some of them are pure scientists, right? So ECE has a very broad background, and what makes ECE so dynamic is how we apply these in our daily lives, and not only for the present generation but for future generations. And again, there are many more people, right? So again, I have not mentioned everyone, but just a brief one. Now, if you look at the industry aspects or the research aspects, right? So again, let's come back to what ECE is. ECE stands for Electronics and Communication Engineering. So these three words mean a significant lot, right? So electronics, it's the basics of what we do every day, right? It's there in every technology that we are running in various forms. It can be analog, it can be digital, it can be VLSI, but in various forms it is there. Communication, right? It's a fundamental aspect of living today, right? If you want to talk to someone across in another part of the world, you can immediately do so, right? And it's human nature to communicate, right? And it's possible because of the technologies that are the advances that are being made in this field. And the term engineering, right? Engineering is a very key term, right? It's not your engineering fundamentally in its core value means you're making things, you're inventing things that are useful for the society, right? And that's how typically engineers distinguish themselves from scientists, right? So you're engineering materials based on knowledge that you get from various sources, from scientists, from physicists, from maybe from biologists, right? And how do you adapt them, or how do you come up with new technologies that are useful for people, that people can actually use, right? And that's what engineering does, right? That's why the program is called Electronics and Communication Engineering. So if you want to understand this better, right? It's always good to look at see where some of the industries that ECE is being applied in, right? So if you look at it, it's a broad area, right? So there is robotics, there is biomedical, there is embedded systems, there is RF technologies, there is automotive industry, there is a communication industry, there is an instrumentation industry, there is aerospace, telecom sector, the space sector, semiconductors, computer networks, energy, telecom. It's in biomedical, right? In various forms, in all of these industries, right? In some way or the other, these industries require a student who has sound knowledge of what is learned in the ECE curriculum, right? That's why it's again this is just it's not the entire list, right? It's some industries that I came up with, I could find, and again it's not an exhaustive. And in today's age, things are rapidly growing, and more and more industries are coming up every day. Right. So now that is an aspect about the industry. Then where is the research part needed, right? So for its research, is very important for the growth of any industry, not only in an academic sense, but also from a very practical aspect, right? And that's why research is being done not only in educational institutes, maybe through a PhD program or through a master's program, but also in industries, right? If you look at big industries, Microsoft, TCS, Amazon, Google, all these industries, right? BlackBerry, right? All these industries, there will always be a research wing that is associated with it, right? And that's because of things are changing daily, and if you want to be the next major player in the market, you have to be on top of your game. And that's why research is a very important part of any field for that matter, not only ECE. And so why is research important, right? Research is important because there are still many unanswered questions in this world, right? And it's research, fundamental aspect of research is to answer these questions. And some people pursue research purely for their intellectual curiosity, right? There are maybe theoreticians, right, who want to do fundamental research, right? May not be applied research, but fundamental research, right? Another reason for doing research is just to do or to find better ways than the existing approaches or technology. And by what I mean by better ways is better in the sense maybe a cheaper solution, or maybe it may be a more environmentally friendly solution, or it may be a solution that has more social benefit, right? It's just to find better ways of doing the same thing, right? Or maybe you do research, maybe over the course, you find new applications that might benefit society, right? So there are various reasons to do research, and if you look at all these industries, right, you can what is broadly some very common research areas are these 8 areas that I have put up over here, right? And again, these are not limited, right? These are some of the very common research areas that you will find in industry or in academic institutions, right? And it may not be so segregated, right? In the sense, it may be some research areas may be an overlap of two things, right? So for example, the common research areas are electromagnetics, communication, optics or photonics, VLSI. VLSI stands for Very Large Scale Integrated Circuits, right? Embedded systems, control systems, biomedical, electronics, right? So these are very common research areas, right? And there's most of the technologies that I showed you is it does not fall into one of these baskets, right? It's a big overlap. For example, there might be an overlap between, say, communications and biomedical, right? Because the end product is a very multidisciplinary product, right? For example, if you talk about an integrated car or say, for example, a driverless car, right, there are various technologies that are coming into it, right? There will be electronics, there will be communications, there will be electromagnetics, there will be control systems, there will be embedded systems. It all these come into it, right? So these are the common research areas. Now, right. Just to take a step back, right? Why I'm putting this up is because I want the students to understand, right? As they progress through the course, they must know what is, as they, maybe if you are in your first year, second year, or your third year, right? So as you finish the course, you can set some targets for yourself, right? You must know what is out there, right? And it's to give you a big picture of what this field is. That is the point of today's session, right? So I hope you find it interesting, right? I hope there are no questions. If there are any questions, please make a note of it in the chat box, and I'll get back to it. I hope I'm audible so far. There's no issues so far.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay. 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 So if you look at each of these areas again, right? Each of these research areas, there is a lot more to look at, right? So for example, if you look at electromagnetics, right? What I've done is on the left I have put up these common research areas, and on the right side I have put up some topics or some keywords that you will hear as you study this course, right? In textbooks or in some articles online, you'll hear about things, right? So if you look at electromagnetics, right, there is antenna engineering, there is microwave devices, there is electromagnetic compatibility, there is computational electromagnetics. How do you numerically solve Maxwell's equations? That's computational electromagnetics. There is plasma, right? For example, if you're launching a rocket into outer space, or what happens at the ionosphere, right? There is a layer of ionosphere, and how does that interact with the space shuttle, right? That's an important part of plasma studies, right? How does a signal go from one base station to another base station? Wave propagation, right? And as you go into higher and higher frequencies, you need to talk about millimeter wave engineering, right? Or there is a new branch that is coming out for the last couple of years, and that is what is called as metamaterial engineering. And metamaterial engineering is metamaterials means materials that are not found in commonly in nature, right? These are man-made materials, but you can get, the famous example that is always given in this field is Harry Potter's cloak, right? You wear that cloak around yourself and then you disappear, right? So that has been partially been shown, but but there are that there's still areas of research, right? So this is about electromagnetics. If you look at communications, there is a fundamental communication theory as well. So there's a lot of maths, there is a lot of theoretical work going on in communications theory. Then there is about wireless communication, right? How do you design wireless networks? What sort of protocols need to be there? These all come under wireless communication. Then there is signal processing, right? There is a digital signal processing, there is analog signal processing, there is image processing, right? Image is essentially a signal, right? You all see this .jpg format or .pmp format, or compression happens, or you zip a file, right? All this is what happens when you in your computer you right click and you go you use WinZip or WinRAR, right? You're compressing a file, right? But compressing a file is essentially signal processing, right? How do you compress a file without losing the information? And more importantly is how do you recreate back the original signal when you when you or the opposite of compress, right? If you expand that one out, right? When you open that compressed file, right? How do you get back the original information, right? Without losing, without losing, information, right? It would be horrible, right? If, for example, you compress an image, I take a photo of myself, I compress it and I send it to you. And if you are when you open that compressed file, if you are not able to get back my photo, then the point is useless, right? So you are lost information, right? So all this comes under signal processing, right? Then security, right? Cryptography is a very happening field right now, right? That's part of communications, right? It's a part of digital communication, right? How do you organize these ones and zeros that you're sending across a computer network, such that a hacker is not able to see those signals, right? Computer networks, right? If you have a LAN cable or a wide area network or a body area network, how does this communicate? How do these devices communicate, right? So it's a communications. There's a lot of in that computer networks area. There's a lot of overlap with the software side as well, right? With computer science. So that's part of what communications is. So there are the reason I put upon this is if some of you maybe in your third year or a fourth year, if you're looking to do higher studies and you look at research areas for various universities or various professors, you'll see all these terms coming up, right? So that's why I put this up, right? So if you're planning on your higher studies, this might be useful. So if you look at optics or photonics, there is a concept of biophotonics. How does light interact with biological materials, right? That comes into biophotonics. Fiber optics, right? You having across continents between Asia and say Europe, right? There are undersea cables, underwater cables that are laid out, right? These are all fiber optic cables, right? Integrated optics, laser fabrication. Fabrication itself is a big challenge when you go into optics and photonics, because you operate at much higher frequencies. So the size of these devices must be very small, right? Because the wavelength comes down. So the fabrication itself becomes a challenge, right? Photovoltaics, right? Your solar panels. How do you increase the efficiency of a solar panel? Right? Plasmonics, right? How does light interact with metal, right? These are all upcoming areas, and highly a lot of researchers are working on in this field. Optical imaging, quantum photonics, quantum communication is what we hear about these days quite a bit. There are various companies that are claiming to have send bits in quantum bits over small distances, right? But that's possible because of light, right? Instead of manipulating ones and zeros, you're manipulating photons, right? That is a particle of light, right? So this is another part of again all this. These areas are all part of electronics and communication, right? So another area is control systems, right? A lot of students are interested in robotics, right? But the fundamental comes from control systems, right? The control theory. So there's a lot of mathematics, there's a lot of algebra, there's a lot of linear algebra, differential equations that go in control theory, right? You might have seen a common example that is always given is, you try to the inverted pendulum, right? For example, we always try to do this with our hands, right? We try to balance this pen with our hand, right, on our palm, right, without making the pen fall down, right? That's a control problem, right? So if the I am the machine, the human mind is a machine, right? And my mind is telling me how to control this pen without it falling down, right? But now when you come into a machine, how do you make a machine that does the same thing, right? Or we are all familiar with drones now, right? Drones are used for, Amazon is using drones for parcel service, right? But how do you stabilize the drone, right? There is control in it, right? Or now if you have if you have many drones, right? How do you control them, right? How do you coordinate their efforts, right? You've probably also seen videos where you throw a drone up in the air, and then it comes back and sort of self stabilizes it, right? These are all control problems, right? And you might have also seen videos where there is a bunch of drones that these are autonomous devices. They you play a song and they dance accordingly, right? These drones, they dance according to the music, right? So these are all autonomous systems, right? The engineering part is the fundamental area that looks at these as control systems. That's a very happening area now as well. The next area is biomedical, right? Again, a lot of research is happening in this. There is neural engineering, rehabilitation engineering, people who lose their limbs. How do we make people come back, to their normal lives, right? People with Alzheimer's, or people with, or children with Parkinson's, right? These are all part of biomedical engineering, right? Sensory systems, bioinformatics, medical imaging systems, right? For example, your CT scan, your MRI scan, these are all biomedical devices, and electronics and communication has a major role to play, right? Not only in making that system, right? The hardware. For example, if you look at a CT scan, what you're doing is you're sending, when a person is being sent to a CT scan, you're actually sending some sort of a magnetic field, right? And that magnetic field is interacting with your body, with the water molecules and with the in the body, and you're getting an image from it, right? So there is there is a biomedical aspect of the impact of medical the magnetic field on the human body. There is electromagnetics in there, right? There is also image processing, right? These images that you get from these devices, CT scans or MRIs, you must be able to process it, right? You must be able to convert that magnetic field into some sort of an image. You'll see, these scans where they have red color intensity, yellow color, blue color, black color, right? These are all, image processing, right? So it's a very, biomedical is a very interdisciplinary area as well. And the core part is electronics, right? Again, a huge area, right? Solid state devices is there. So for example, most laptops today have they have solid state memories, right? SSD memory. In the olden days, not so olden days, but still maybe in your desktop systems, you have hard drives, which the spin hard drives, where you have a needle and the hard drive spins, right? But does not work on that phenomenon, right? So then digital design systems, analog systems, right? VLSI and large scale integrated circuits, right? For example, if you take apart a TV, right, you'll see an integrated circuit, right? Biomedical circuits, automotive circuits, device architecture, for example, FPGAs, right? Field programmable gate arrays. These are all part of electronics, right? Or VLSI as well, right? So these are all areas of research, and each of this has a lot of areas or specific problems or specific challenges that are being solved in today's world, right? Every field has its unique set of challenges and problems, right? And as an electronics and as an ECE graduate, you try to solve certain challenges in your area, right? and there are various upcoming areas as well. Like I said, the field is the industry is always growing, right? It's never stagnant, right? And EC students, other areas that they can contribute is data science, artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, augmented reality or virtual reality or mixed reality, like 3D printing, and many more. 5G, 6G, right? These are all upcoming areas, right? And so I hope this gives you so just to summarize the section is right is I hope you get an appreciation for what sort of industries EC students can work in, and once you get into an industry, what sort of research problems are there, or what sort of areas can you specifically work on, right? Maybe if you're doing a graduate studies, or maybe if you're coming up, joining as a research associate or whatever, right? Right. So you must, even if you're in your first year or second year of engineering, you must plan, 5 years, 6 years ahead, right? What sort of. So we'll come back to that, right? But I hope you got an appreciation for the various research areas and what specifically goes into various industries, right? So now coming down to what from a student's point of view, right? What does the industry require, right? What are the expectations from the industry, and what skills are you expected when you are doing your undergraduate studies? So, for example, if you're in your first year, when you finish your fourth year of BTech, what skills are some of the things that you must know? It's not possible to learn everything, but some fundamental things that is expected from a student, right? And I thought the best way to describe this or to answer some of these questions is to show you some job postings. And that's what I'll show you now. So in the next couple of slides, I'll go through some job postings from different companies, right? That EC students can apply for jobs, right? We'll go through the job title and the job description. So the description is important because it gives you I'll highlight some keywords because I will give you these are some words that you can understand, so you can appreciate, if you want to get employed, right? These are some of the things that you can look forward to, right? Or some of the things that you must be good at, right? Even if you don't know, you must be able to learn it quickly, right? Or you have a talent, or you have a mindset to learn, right? And also one caveat is some of these job descriptions may not be applicable for a fresh graduate, but it is applicable for maybe for someone who is 2 years into the industry or 3 years into the industry, right? But like I said, I put that up because I want I want students to plan their career, right? Your career does not happen automatically. You must plan it, right? So you must look ahead to, if you want to stay in this field, what are some of the things that I must learn ahead of time, right? So I hope that gives you a bigger picture, right? So let's go through some of the job descriptions. The first one is from Bosch, right? You have all heard of this company, Bosch, right? They have offices in India as well, right? And I think most of the companies that I have put up, they have offices in India, right? So the title for this particular job description was the job title was ECU hardware engineer. So ECU stands for Electronic Control Unit Hardware Engineer. Again, this is a job that an ECU student can apply to. But when you look at a job title, it's not the title that is important, it's what the job description or the job requirements that the company is posting, right? So if you look at any job descriptions online, right, you will find for every position that they advertise, there'll always be a job description, right? So you must always go through that. So I encourage the students, to get into the habit of reading these job descriptions. It's not because you will know it right now, but at least you can evaluate yourself, right? Do I know this, or what things don't I know, right? Or am I interested in this? Can I learn it, right? So it's for that purpose that you must read these job descriptions. So, for example, in this one, what it says is it requires an ECU engineer for hardware development. So the job is particularly hardware, right? That's a key part, and it's for an automotive application, right? And the candidate they are recruiting or they are expecting, they must he must be able to, he or she must be able to do a requirement analysis and a concept definition, right? Again, these I have not made any additions to this. These are actual job postings, right? So I just want to highlight that, right? Another thing that they're looking at is module or ECU design and development. You will be expected to know worst case calculations and simulations. So again, so you must be able to know some sort of a software, right? You must be able to prepare a schematic and a BOM preparation. BOM means bill of materials, right? So if you must be able to, that skill you must be able to have, right? Then just continuing on with that, you must be able to know layout development and coordination, right? Sample development. So some hardware aspects are there. You will have to do fabrication as well. Test planning and preparation, right? In any company, before a product is released, it goes to intensive testing, right? So you must be able to plan that testing. So that's what. So that capability must be there, or you must be able to work in a team that does this, right? EMC test plan, and EMC test coordination, project documentation. So people, sometimes students ask, when you prepare these final year reports or third year design project reports, why am I making these reports? Right? It's not only from your syllabus point of view, but these are skills that you must know. These are skills that you will need in an industry as well. You must know how to do a project documentation, right? These are scientific articles, right? Technical documents, right? So you must know how to do that, right? So this is for one industry. This is for this particular job, ECU hardware engineer at Bosch. Let's look at another one. This is for Siemens. The job title is a system engineer for propulsion, right? So this is Siemens is working on some propulsion technology, right? So this is you need an engineer for that. So what does the job description look like, or what does a company expect from a candidate that they want to hire, right? You will coordinate project planning or development projects in the field of drive technology for rail vehicles and carry them out, right? So this is for the railway industry, right? So you must be able to do project planning, right? Your tasks include carrying out calculations and simulations, right? So you must be able to know, right? Drawing up specifications for the components of the drive technology, right? And evaluating measurement results from other departments, right? So the basic idea is you must be able to have some sort of a technical knowledge, right? You will be generating solutions and you will be involved in the creation of patents, right? So this is something that is expected from an engineering student, right? Again, continuing the job description is you must present the development result to users, decision makers, suppliers, and customers. So your presentation skills must be good, right? Then if you look at the third bullet, you must have knowledge of simulation tools or techniques for circuits of power electronics, right? So students who may be pursuing advanced studies in power electronics, they must know that simulation tools as well, right? So again, the fourth bullet is you're familiar with analysis and review methodologies, and you have mastered presentation techniques, right? So this is one job that is giving a lot of importance to presentation, right? And you're capable of analysis and learning, and always work result oriented or quality oriented, right? So that's important as well. So these are things that, again, like I said, I have not filtered anything. These are actual job descriptions. I may have removed a couple of bullets just in the interest of space, but the wordings are exactly the same. Let's look at another company. This is from Intel, right? This is the job title is a graduate intern technician, right? So what is expected in this job, right? What are the requirements they are expecting from a candidate, right? You will be involved in training, design, and development of next generation CPUs, server CPUs, right? Or system on chips, SoCs, right? You must be using design tools, EDA tools, to simulate logic behavior and circuit performance, right? And it's particularly for physical design of next generation sub-micron circuit simulations, right? So this is at sub-micron level. So when you go into millimeter wave technology or nanometer scale integration, you must be able to know how to simulate these circuits as well. What is expected again is you must know how to verify the circuit behavior. So this is a very technical position, right? So you must be able to know this, right? Again, like I said, don't get scared because I'm saying all this, and it's not. Of course, it's not possible to learn all of this at the end of your 4 years of BTech. So some of these job positions are maybe for students who have finished their MTech, right? Or some of them maybe for positions maybe 2 or 3 years into the industry, right? But again, I put this up so that you appreciate what happens as you plan your career. As you say, if you choose a career, if you go into 2 or 3 years into that line, what are some of the jobs that are there out there, right? So you will know ahead of time. That's why I'm presenting all this. So continuing with this, right? This job, and particularly from Intel, is a very electronics-based job. So this is, you must be knowing how to design VLSI structural design methodology, right? Again, this job is requiring you to be well versed in C programming, right? Unix programming, so command line, C programming, and CAD tools, right? So you're expected to do that. So this is something that you can learn in your BTech, right? So C programming, make sure you have very good fundamentals of that. Right? So by the time you pass out, you're ready for a job that requires C programming. Let's move on to another company. This is from Analog Devices. The title is Physical Design Engineer, right? So what are the descriptions, right? Analog Devices again is it's a core electronics job, right? But they mainly focus on digital logics, right? So again, understanding of digital logics, right? And understanding signal integrity, power integrity, right? When you make a motherboard, right? How do you ensure that the signal that goes from one chip to the other chip, right, is of sufficient quality? Right? How do you ensure that there is no interference between two traces that are there on your motherboard, right? How do you ensure that there is no crosstalk, right? These are all things that are there. There are aspects that are important when you look at signal integrity, right? This particular job is requiring you to know scripting skills and knowledge of Python or Perl, right? And strong engineering, communication, and collaboration skills, right? So this is something that most industries are looking at. You must be having very good communication skills, and you must be able to work in a team. That's why collaboration is important, right? Continuing on with that, high motivation and determination to succeed. Um, Effective teamwork involving engineers working in geographically disparate locations. Right. So, for example, if you go into global companies, you might have to interact with people from different backgrounds, from different cultures, right? So, often the common language is English, right? So, it's desirable that you're able to communicate with them properly. Right? But maybe if you are working with South American counterpart, right? Maybe Latin. If you know Latin and they're comfortable with Latin, maybe that's important, right? Some companies might look at that, right? That's why language skills are important. Let's look at another company. This is L&T, right? Larsen and Turbo, right? This is a firmware developer, right? This is somewhat on a more of a programming job, right? This is in C programming. So C programming on embedded controllers like the Texas Instruments C2000 controllers or the ARM processor, right? You must have some experience with embedded firmware and RTOS or hardware and firmware interaction. This one particular requires 3 years of experience in metering, microgrids, power inverters, static switches, motor control applications. It's because the kind of job L&T does, right? And another the thing that is required is knowledge of C and firmware development, and having knowledge of compilers, debuggers, emulators, and tool chains. Okay? So, so this is another job description, right? I'm not very sure how to pronounce this, but it's a IQVIA. This is a very upcoming company in data science, right? They're, I think, based in Finland, right? So this job title, but they have an office in Kochi, right? A job title is cloud network engineer. The description for it is uh, this particular job is requiring you managing data on the cloud, right? So for example, cloud storage, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, everyone is providing cloud storage these days, right? But how do you manage it, right? That's this job, right? The job description requires says that ensuring compliance with relevant legislation or guidelines, troubleshooting, design, planning, and implementing client-specific cloud solutions, right? Um, Other details are monitoring usage of the cloud network, right? Ensuring that the cloud network is responsive to user demands, right? So these are some of the job descriptions that is given for this particular job, right? Um, Right. So this is another company. This is on the automotive sector, right? AutoSAR Engineer. AutoSAR is a software that is it's an open source software that is used in the automotive industry to standardize across different companies. For example, BMW, Benz, Audi, right, or Nissan, Toyota, right? If you want to standardize across that across these various cars, right? The inherent technology, it's a software that is being used for that AutoSAR, right? Again, these are all jobs that an ECE student can apply for, right? May not be immediately after BTech, but they may have positions. Another goal for me presenting these session is, so you're familiar with these company names, right? The job postings that I'm putting up here may be only for maybe for a person with 2 years or 3 years experience. But if you look at the company sites, they may also advertise maybe for internships or for job positions for freshers as well. So it's to sensitize you about these as well, these companies as well. So this particular job description is understanding vehicle security, so in vehicle cryptography, software development aspects of it, understanding the security concerns of a customer, right? Understanding this particular standard ISO 2143, right? Preparing and reviewing security documents, right? Doing performing code review, excellent written and verbal communication skills. Must be self-directed, highly motivated, and eager to learn, right? So these are some of the things that are expected from this job, right? Again, another posting from Siemens. This is for an electronic hardware developer, and this is a core core ECE job, right? It's a high-speed data acquisition system, right? It's an analog device. You need to know about analog design, about op-amp design, communication protocols at the physical layer, right? Dealing with microcontrollers, right? Designing for low power applications. You must know about the testing and validation equipment, right? So you must be familiar with an oscilloscope, signal analyzer, right? And things like that, right? So this is for this kind of a job. I'm speeding up a little bit just in the interest of time, right? This company is Cyratron is it's from an RF position, right? In the field of electromagnetics, right? This is familiarity with RF and microwave products, both from the megahertz range to the millimeter wave range, right? So you must be familiar with high power bipolar transistors, MOSFET transistors, Schottky diodes, spin diodes, right? So the job title is field application engineer, right? The position is you might have to travel in this position, so it requires on-site technical support, right? For troubleshooting, right? You must be self-motivated, willing to conduct market research, right? Ability to communicate and document well as well. So you see this documentation and communication aspects coming up again and again, right? And again, there are various other recruiters for a BTech student, right? For example, Microsoft hires, TCS, Amazon, Tech Mahindra, Infosys, DRDO recruits, Steel Authority, SAIL, CDAC, recruits, Indian Railways, BSNL, so many other companies, right? So because the nature of the industry, the nature of the field is so multidisciplinary that the job prospects are quite good for ACE students. And not only core industrial jobs, right? There are other career opportunities as well. For example, if you are interested in going into the teaching line, right, you can become an assistant professor and get become an associate professor and finally a professor, right? Or you can also, if you are purely interested in research, you can be employed as a research associate, or you can also become an entrepreneur, right? Um, so so that's also there, right? So right. So just to summarize what the industry is expecting is, right? Um, what are the skills expected from the industry is, you must be prepared for their company specific tests or competitive exams or gate. Right? Basically, how do you get into a company, right? So you must know what are the eligibility criteria for each company, right? For example, um, gate is needed for any Navratna companies, right? Um, for maybe if you want to get into Infosys, there are specific tests that you need to pass through, right? That's important, right? Then second thing that you must know is, your core must be the technical knowledge, right? Not only in hardware but also software, and this depends on the industry, right? Industry or the area that you are focusing on, right? You must know programming skills, right? So you saw some of the job descriptions that is highlighting this, right? C programming, Verilog programming, Python, assembly language, right? Design tools, right? MATLAB, PSpice, HFSS, LTSpice, right? And not only a technical knowledge, right? Communication skills, presentation skills, working in a team. These are all um, very important if you want to get into an industry, right? Sometimes when you have two candidates which are technically very good, right? Both are on par, but a preference might go to someone who communicates well or who works more better in a team, right? That attitude, right? That might work for them, right? So it's very important that you develop that in your 4 years of BTech, right? And finally, you must be a self-motivated individual, right? Maybe at your BTech level, maybe your faculty members will, be behind you, or maybe to a certain extent, your parents will also, be behind you to do this, to do that, right? But in an industry, it doesn't work that way, right? Um, they expect you to be self-motivated, and that's very important, right? So it's a habit, and that does not come overnight, right? So that habit must, you must inculcate within yourself during your 4 years, right? So that's about Industry Connect, right? So now let's go to the last part of this talk, right? Connecting to the syllabus, right? So how does what you learn in your 4 years of BTech, right, connect to what I have said so far, right? So what have I said so far, right? So just a quick recap, right? We have seen what the industries we can potentially work with. An EC student can potentially work. We have seen some areas of research, right? We have seen some upcoming areas. We have seen what are the skills that are required from a BTech student. You have also seen what are the industry expectations from EC graduates. And so these are some things that you have seen. Now, what we're going to see is the curriculum, right? What you're studying. So most of the audience today is students that go under the KTU from Kerala's Technological University, right? So what we're going to see is how does the EC curriculum, what you learn in your 4 years, help an EC student, and how is that curriculum designed, right? What are the topics that are covered in your syllabus? And it's to the next couple of slides. The point is to make this link between what is expected in industry and how your 4 years of EC studying in an EC program, how it helps you get into an industry, or how it prepares you for an industry, right? Getting into an industry is a lot of effort is on your side, but how does the curriculum help you? Right? And that's what we're going to study next, going to look to next. Right? So if you look at your first year syllabus, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the KTU syllabus for the 2019 scheme for the 4 years. Right? So if you look at your first year syllabus, right, right, this is the S1 syllabus, right? These are the courses in S1, and these are the courses in S2, right? So if you look at that, there's a lot of courses. We'll go through it each one by one, right? If you look at it, you can broadly classify it into four categories, right? One is the basic sciences, mathematics fundamentals, right? A basic understanding, of other branches of engineering, and some humanities and social sciences. So this is in your first year of study. So remember, this is targeted for a student who has finished +2 or 12th standard, right, and is coming into their first year of engineering, right? Right. So what is being taught in this, right? So if you look at basic sciences, right, it is these courses, right? You have engineering, physics, and chemistry, right? You also have the corresponding labs, right? And the mathematics part, right? Mathematics in all these areas that you are studying, right? Mathematics plays a very huge role, right? Remember, what is mathematics, right? Mathematics is just a language, right? It's to if you want to the scientific concepts that you want to translate into practical applications, you need a language to convert that, and that language is mathematics. So it's very important that as EC student appreciates it at least. Some of you, a lot of people, would have told you as well, when you go into an industry, all these mathematics are no longer needed. And to a large extent, it's true, right? Because a lot of us only see the end product. But if you come down to the basic aspects, if you start doing fundamental research, fundamental technological improvements, you will have to look into mathematics. 95% of 90 to 95% of your work in an industry may not require mathematics, but it's at 5% of jobs, depending on the job you're going to, will require mathematics. So in your first year, we focus on linear algebra and calculus and differential equations. So linear algebra is a fundamental aspect in control systems, robotics, communication systems, right? Differential equations play a big role in electromagnetics, control systems. Again, vectors, vector calculus plays a very important role, right? And so that's the second thing that you learn in your first year. The other point of first year is not to go directly into. In first year, the point is to sensitize the student, right? Not to directly jump into the details, but is to give them a broader appreciation of what is engineering. Right? So that's why the third aspect is there. There is a basic understanding of other branches of engineering. So you have engineering mechanics, engineering graphics, basics of civil and mechanical, basics of electrical and electronics engineering. And humanities and social sciences are equally important because we all live in a society. You must know how to communicate with people. You must know how to treat people well. You must know how to deal people with in a professional manner, and these are all important. So that's why you have courses like life skills and professional communication. So this is in your first year. So in your S1 and S2. If you go into your second year, things start changing a little bit more, right? From in your first year we had basic sciences, and in your second year you begin to have the fundamental subjects of ECE. Right, so if you look at your second year syllabus in S3 and S4, these are the courses that you will see. So again, there are four broad classifications, right? From the basic sciences that you saw in first year, in second year you go on to the fundamental subjects of ECE. These are the core subjects, the fundamentals based on which the courses in your third year and fourth year rely on. And these courses are what you see over here in green, right? Solid state devices, logic circuit design, network theory, analog systems, analog circuits, signals and systems, computer architecture, and their corresponding labs, right? These are all again mapping to some of these research areas or the industries that I'm talking about, right? So for example, solid state devices is a fundamental part of electronics, right? Signals and systems is a fundamental course that is needed in communication systems. Computer architecture is very important if you want to do research work or if you want to get in an industry that that requires FPGA design, right? Network theory or logic circuit design is important if you're going into sort of digital communications or digital hardware, right? So so these are the core courses. Again, you're seeing some more mathematics courses over here. You're seeing partial differential equations and complex analysis, and you're seeing probability and random processing. Again, very important courses, right? Complex analysis is very important. Again, courses that require mathematics like control theory require a lot of complex analysis, right? Probability is very important, because every communication system fundamentally relies on probability, because nothing is in probability. Communication. For example, um, a communication channel fundamentally is it's a probabilistic channel, right? I may or may not send a signal, right? Or the signal that I'm sending may or may not get an interference, right? Go through interference, right? So it's very probabilistic, right? So how do you deal with that, right? So you must be capable of knowing, dealing with it, the mathematics behind that, right? So that's about the mathematics subjects that you're learning. Again, other branches of engineering, for example, design engineering, sustainable engineering, very important, right? Humanities and social sciences courses like ethics, Constitution of India, right? It's a new course, Constitution of India, but it's important, right? We are all living in India. We must know, we must appreciate what we are living, right? Because at the end of the day, even if you're living in if you're working in an industry, there are external factors that that will control, for example, a deployment of of your company, right? How well a company grows, depends on the framework within which you're living in India, right? Or the rules and regulations that are given in the constitution, right? So now, if you go into your third year, so you see this, right? So if you go into your third year, as you go into higher and higher years, right? As you approach your fourth year, you're getting more and more specialized, right? So in your third year, there is fewer of these mathematics subjects, but you're going into core ECE subjects, right? Into fundamental specialization. So if you look at the third year in your S5, right? It is now divided into two main areas, right? Most of which are your core ECE areas. So this is what is shown in green, right? Linear integrated circuits, digital signal processing, control systems, and log and digital communication, corresponding labs, right? And again, social sciences and humanities, and those are all important, right? Disaster management, management for engineers, industrial economics, foreign trade, these are all important, right? Again, if you go into your sixth semester, right, in your third year, right, you're again having core subjects, right? For example, electromagnetics, VLSI circuit design, information theory. You're also having program electives, and in your third year, you're having what is called as a mini project and a comprehensive, right? So if you look at your program elective, right? If you look at your program electives, um, there are again very specialized courses over here, right? Power electronics, embedded systems, MEMS, quantum computing, and so on, right? So this is what I said, right? As you go into higher and higher years, you're getting more and more specialized into these various areas, research areas that I talked about, right? Again, some social sciences and humanities courses as well. If you go into your fourth year, right, you're going into further advanced courses, right? So if you look at your S7, right, um, if you look at the advanced areas, these are now, second year and third year are again, the fundamentals. And if you go into your fourth year, you're building up on, um, very specialized courses. For example, wireless communication is a specialized course of, signals and systems or communication theory, right? And you have this program electives as well, right? So if you look at program electives, you have optical fiber communication, optoelectronic devices, error control codes, antenna and wave propagation, machine learning, right? These are all specialized courses, right? But so, for example, if we talk about antenna and wave propagation, that's a specialized course, but the fundamental course is electromagnetic theory, right? Or if you look at optical fiber communication, the fundamental course will be signal systems, maybe, right? Or solid state devices, right? Then you also have, other, your open electives and, your projects and things like that, and seminars. And that's to broaden your scope in your final year, right? And finally, if you go into the last semester, again, you're having, three program electives, right? That you're free to choose, right? And these are it, right? So again, these are all advanced courses, right? For example, biomedical engineering, pattern recognition, RF circuit design, satellite communication, um, analog CMOS design, robotics, computer vision, Internet of Things, renewable energy, microwave devices and circuits, real-time operating systems, right? So these are all specialized courses where that are sort of prepared slowly by the end of your fourth year. It's preparing you to to go into an industry, right? And we talked about how these courses are being mapped into various industries, right? For example, biomedical engineering goes into the biomedical field, right? Satellite communication may go into the communication industry, or maybe to a certain extent into the electromagnetics industry, right? Pattern communication, pattern recognition goes into image processing, right? Security, right? So again, and then you have a course on instrumentation as well, right? So that's how. So just to summarize your syllabus, right? The syllabus covers the fundamental mathematics that is required to understand the various topics in ECE, the basics of electronics, communications, and programming as well, right? And and as you go into your final years, you get an opportunity to specialize in which topics that you want to learn, right? And also, what is covered in the syllabus is the laboratory aspects, right? You also have a final year project. That's a time when you get an opportunity to to apply what you have learned in your 4 years, right? So finally, a project is something that is always very important for a BTech student. When you go for any interview, often a common question that is asked is your final year project, right? And also the syllabus covers some aspects for a student's all-round development, right? So you must know something about other branches of engineering. So for example, sustainable engineering, design engineering, and so on, right? Social sciences and humanities, right? So, so this is just to summarize what is there in their syllabus, right? Um, I'll play this video at the end, just in the interest of time, right? It's a 10-minute video, but I'll share this video online in the chat box. Maybe just in the interest of time, I'll skip this video for now. We'll come back to it, right? But again, let's come back to, so what have you seen again, right? So if you go back to, we'll come back to the second slide. We have seen what is ECE. We have seen what its origin is, right? We have seen some of the industries, the areas that we applied it, right? We have seen the research areas. We have seen some of your career opportunities and the skills that you need, and how is the syllabus linked to this industry and research areas, right? And let's just to put all of it together, right? I'll show you an example that we all use, right? And that's a smartphone, right? So a smartphone is an engineering marvel, right? How much ever we are addicted to it, we're all addicted to it in some way or the other. We are all addicted to it, right? You know, very few of us can stay away from a phone for more than half an hour or 15 minutes, right? So, but it's an engineering marvel, right? And it's a very multidisciplinary, example, right? So, what I'm going to show you is just what all concepts that we have seen so far is coming in this. EC concepts are coming into the simple device that you carry in your pockets, right? So if you look at a smartphone, right, the first thing that you see is a touch screen, right? The touch screen, there's a lot of engineering in it, right? So that comes under optics or photonics, and there is material technology as well, right? So how do you design that touch screen, right? Maybe a capacitive screen or it may be a resistive screen, right? How do you design it, right? How do you make it, right? So that engineering is there. On the top right, we all see this, right? About Wi-Fi signal strength and signal quality as well. Maybe if you're on BSNL or Geo, you see a signal quality. What is that, right? It's communications industry, right? Or it's a biomedical aspect, right? Then you have all these apps that are installed in this on your phone, right? That is software, right? The body of the phone, right? People like iPhone because of the way it looks, right? It's a huge fan for them, right? So that is an application of design engineering, right? There's a lot of thought, there is a lot of trial and error that goes into designing a phone, right? Not only the software part, but also the hardware part, right? This is all design engineering, right? And this bar that we see at the bottom, right? It's computer science, it's AI, right? When you're speaking to Google or Alexa or whatever, right? That's artificial intelligence that is trying to understand your speech processing and get you answers that you're asking, right? Right? What else? If you split apart this phone, right? What else is there, right? You have integrated circuits, right? integrated circuits and or RF circuits, right? If you're, because these might be operating at higher frequencies as well, not only at not only at DC but also at AC, right? So you have analog electronics, you have RF electronics, digital electronics. What else? You have this cable. If you pull apart your phone, you have this cable, this white cable. That's what you call as a UFL cable, and that's how do you design a cable, right? We all have, we are all familiar with the bigger cables, right? The network cable that you plug into your computer port, right, to get internet connection, right? Or the USB cable you are familiar with, but there are all these smaller cables, UFL cable, WFL cables. How do you design this cable, right? That itself is an engineering, right? There is a chassis of the phone, right? The body of the phone, sometimes is used as an antenna, right? So that is again design engineering. How do you design the body of the phone, right? To support all this PCB, the battery and everything, right? Without ensuring that there is no interference with any of these systems. Okay? There is a layout, the PCB layout, right? You open a TV, you open a smartphone, it looks like a very complicated circuit, right? So how do you do the layout for that? The electronic, the various components that are there, the amplifiers, the mixers, the filters, all this goes under VLSI, the microcontrollers, all these comes under VLSI or electronics, right? And again, I'm highlighting all this so that we use this on a daily basis. When we see a phone, we don't think of all this, right? But all this is happening, almost at every second of time. And every second, things are happening inside your phone. And that's because of all these technologies that are inside, right? So it's very important that we appreciate all this, right? Again, what more is there, right? There's a microphone, right? So that's electronics, right? It's a transducer. How do you design that? How do you make it smaller, right? How do you, some of the Sony phones will have two microphones, right? Or speakers as well, right? I've not shown a speaker, right? But how do you design the speaker, right? There is a UFL connector, right? I showed you the UFL cable in the earlier slide, right? This is where the cable goes on, right? The connector part, right? How do you design that? That is electromagnetics, right? There is a battery, and often there is a battery management system as well. So that is electronics, materials, software, right? What else, right? There is the antenna, right? In all these phones that you carry in your pocket, they have at least 5 or 6 antennas, right, inside this phone. And that's one of the challenges in, when you go into 5G and 6G, how do you design antennas to, you want phones to be smaller, but and so if the phone is becoming smaller, the antenna also becomes smaller, right? So how do you design 5 or 6 of this, or 7 or 8 of this to fit into the phone, right? Designing an antenna that's and it's because of the antenna that you're able to watch a video on a phone. You're able to watch a movie on your phone is because over Wi-Fi is because the antenna is working properly, right? There is a camera aspect, right? Most of these the phones, they are they talk about every successive generation of a phone brings up a new camera, right? So there's the optics part of it, there is the electronics part of it, right? There is a processors, right? The electronics, the software, not only the design of that hardware, but also the code that goes into that software, right? Into that chip, right? So these are this is just an example, right? So just some I'll conclude with this, right? So I hope that the smartphone example gives you a better appreciation of what ECE does, right? So this is just one simple example, right? And every device that you look around, you will find many much such applications of ECE, right? So just for the students, just a few suggestions based on what I went through as a student, and I've seen my friends study, and as part of my teaching career as well. When I see students, just a few suggestions for you, right? So when you're studying your BTech course, right, you're going through a lot of subjects, right? And it's very commendable, right? A BTech student goes through a lot of coursework, right? But as you learn a subject, It's very important that you spend some time to understand why you're studying it and where is it going to be used, right? So I hope what we have seen today in the earlier part of the seminar, right? I hope that gives you an appreciation of where it is going to be used, right? So, for example, what sort of an industry is it going to be used, or what sort of research areas are going to be used in, right? So I hope that helps you. Um, get a feeling of what subjects you like and what you don't like, right? This is very important, right? When you study a course, it's natural. You like some subjects and you totally dislike other subjects, right? And that's natural. I also have my preferences, right? And it could be for various reasons, right? So it's very important that you understand not only what subjects you like and what you don't like, but why you like it and why you don't like it, right? It may be because of an influence of a teacher, right? You like a particular subject because of a teacher. Sometimes you like the subject because there's a lot of mathematics in it. Sometimes you like a subject because it just clicks with you, right? Some things, some people, maybe programming sort of computer based courses, just clicks for them in their mind, right? So that gives you that sort of gives you a good groundwork, a good motivation. Or this is some area that I want to work in, right? So so that's his last bullet, right? Is this a sort of area or field that I would like to work in, right? As you go on through your 4 years of study, right? Ask yourself these questions, right? What you like and what you don't like, right? So it's very important, right? And but whatever it is, understand your basics, right? There is no point. You must know what is a centimeter. You must know what is a millimeter. You must know what is megahertz, right? Simple things, right? Um, and at the end of the day, maybe if you're attending an interview, maybe the basics that are being tested, very difficult question, the basics, right? So be thorough with that, right? And to understand that, to be thorough in your basics, you must read, right? That's something that I find that is lacking in a lot of students. Now, when I say read, I don't simply mean textbooks, right? Getting a good textbook and you can read it is good, but that's a little difficult, right? So I'm not saying textbooks, but reading a lot of online articles, right? The latest technical magazines in your field, right, that you can read, that are meant for the general audience, right? The general public, and you must be able to read such articles and understand the technical terms that are coming up in that article, right? And if when you read more and more, you will get an appreciation of is this a sort of area that I like? Is this an area sort of that I don't like? I don't want to specialize in this field. I don't want to work in this area anymore. I don't want to join a company that that is working in this area. These are sort of the things that that you can that you can find answers to these questions, right? And not only reading, but talking to people, talking to faculty members, talking to your family members, talking to your seniors, talking to alumni. You can gain more exposure, right? That's very important, right? And always you must ask questions, right? In class also I tell this, right? There is nothing like a silly question, right? um, so always be curious, and you must ask questions, because only if you ask questions will you learn, um, and you will grow, right? So it's very important that you ask them. So don't take things for granted, right? The world that you are living in is engineered, right? People before you, people before me, they have engineered the world for us, right? And we are living in that world. So maybe for the future generation, you can engineer something more in a better way for the future generation, right? So that's why we are called engineers, right? That's the point of doing an engineering course, right? So you can do something different, right? That will help society in a better way, right? So with that, I'll conclude, right? Sorry, it went more than I expected, right? Just more than an hour, right? I'd like to thank some people, Dr. Balamudin, the HOD of Electronics and Communication Department, Anish sir, again a faculty here, and Abjit sir, who's also the Training and Placement Officer. I got some of the inputs. I had a discussion about this with these people, and that's I had contributions from them as well. So Abhijit sir particularly helped in getting some of these job descriptions as well. So I thank all of these people, and thank you. And so with that, I conclude. Um, so this is a snapshot of Ahalya campus. So for those of you who are not here, not from Ahalya, right? I always encourage you to visit our campus, right? And with that, I'll conclude. So thank you for your patient listening, right? And if there are any questions, I'll take the questions. And I'll try to answer them to the best of my capability. Thank you.
It was a very informative session, sir. If anyone have any queries, you can post it in the chat section. And I would also like to invite Kavya Mukundan SYEC to propose the vote of thanks.
Sorry, are there any questions? I presume not. I don't see any questions in the chat box.
No, sir, there are no questions.
Okay.
Good evening, all. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the word of thanks on this memorable occasion. Let me, first of all, start by giving glory to the Almighty God for making today's occasion a resounding success. First and foremost, I thank our respected principal of Ahalya School of Engineering and Technology, Dr. Pyasri Mahadevan Pillai sir. His able guidance has always encouraged us. We are grateful to our Vice Principal and the resource person of today's webinar, Dr. Krishna Kumar Kishore sir, for this wonderful session. I thank him for his kindness, interest, hospitality, and continued support. Thank you, sir. I thank our well-wisher, Head of Electronics and Communication Department, Dr. V. Balamurugan sir, for his unstinted support, vision, and commitment. Thank you, sir. I owe special gratitude to the HODs of other departments and teachers who have worked hard to ensure that this occasion becomes a memorable success. Thank you all. Last but not the least, I thank all our participants for their cooperation and energetic support. Once again, thank you all.
Sir, I think there is a query here.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
So there is a query here. Sharon Sakria has asked a question here. She's asking about scope of electronics engineers in electric vehicle.
In electric vehicle, so that's a good question. So electric vehicles. So when you hear about electric vehicles, the first thing that comes into your mind is the battery, right? So first of all, how do you design a battery, right? That's part of, see, again, it's a very interdisciplinary topic, right? So electrical engineering also triply has a big role to play here. How do you design the battery, right? Do you simply design it on lithium-ion batteries, right? How do you recharge the battery, right? So you also need a battery management system, right? So that is a role for electronics engineers to play, right? If you're interested in material science, designing batteries is a huge area of research, right? Coming up with novel materials that can be used as in the battery, right? So how do you come up with novel materials that will expand the life of the battery, right? So you can have fewer and fewer recharges, right? So that's the scope for electronics in electric vehicle with respect to the battery. And again, electric vehicle, again, you have, it will be, for example, if you look at all these systems by, Tesla and all, right? They will be having the communication system between the driver and the vehicle, right? That's electronics, right? So how do you design? That's Bosch works on this quite a bit, right? How do you design the electronics for the entertainment of the module or the speakers inside a car, right? We all hear music inside the car, right? But how do you design that, right? How do you design a good set of speakers, right? Or how do you? We all use Bluetooth assisted technology as well, right? So how does that work, right? How does your phone connect to the to the phone of a driver, right? So these are all aspects of where electronics engineers play a role, right? And now if you're going into hands-free driving or driverless cars as well, you might have a passenger, but which you want to connect with, right? Or if you want to play a movie, right, inside a car, right? How is that communication done, right? Um, all these plays a big role in electric vehicles as well. So I hope that gives you a picture, right? Right. So there's
Thank
a
you, sir.
question about cyber security as well, right? So cyber security, like I said, is again it's an interdisciplinary area. It's a lot of it plays a role in computer science, right? But also a part of it comes in communication theory, right? So that's where cybersecurity comes in. So, for example, if I go back to my slides, there's a course on error control codes, right? Error control is a fundamental aspect that is used in communication systems, any digital communication that you're doing. For example, your Wi-Fi router is doing this, right? Or inside your phone is doing this, is using error control codes. Is using error control codes not only to ensure that there is a good signal to noise ratio or good communication between the transmitter and the receiver. The error control codes are not only for that, but it can also be used to ensure that there is no hacking going on, or such that a third party does not interfere with the communication between the desired transmitter and the receiver. So that is one aspect of cybersecurity. The most common cybersecurity term that we hear about is in the computer science aspect, when we're talking about hacking and things like that. That is hacking from a programming point of view, but there is also hacking from sort of the signal point of view, right? And that's so that you can come up with codes or communication algorithms that some are which are more prone to hacking or which are less prone to hacking, right? So these are all areas of research that if you go into communication theory, that that happens, right? So it's one form of cybersecurity, right? So I hope that answers your question, Vishnu. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Good to know. Thank you, Vishnu.
Sir, so I hope there are no more questions. So the feedback form is given in the chat section, posted in the chat section. Everybody, please give your feedback for the session, and thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. See you.
So thank you, sir, for
Thank you,
your
sir.
nice
Thank you,
presentation.
Bhaskar.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, is Sanjay here? Okay. There's a question over here that says that it's true. There is no email ID given over here. So if you have all registered, then I think the email ID will be there. Um, Sorry, for the participants, if you are still here, um, I have revised the feedback form. Um, so I have included an email ID as well. Um, so if those of you have registered and before, and your email ID is there in the registration form, so you can get it from there. If not, please, I encourage all of you to fill the feedback form again, so that your email ID is readily available. Okay. All right. Thank you.